Renata had known about the estate for 2 years. She had been sitting at her mother's kitchen table on a Tuesday afternoon in October, the kind of afternoon that felt like it was already preparing for winter, when her mother slid a manila envelope across the table without ceremony and said, "I want you to know where everything is." Renata had opened it slowly. She read through it carefully. She asked 2 questions. Her mother answered both. Then they finished their coffee and talked about something else. That was the whole of it. No drama. No speech about who deserved what. Her mother was not a woman who explained herself when she felt her decisions were sound. In the 2 years that followed, Renata told no one. When her mother died on a Wednesday in November, Renata made the calls herself. She sat in the hospital corridor with her coat still on and worked through her contacts in order, oldest to youngest, the way her mother had always introduced them to strangers. Daniel first, then Simone, then Marcus. Daniel said he'd have to check flights. Simone said she'd call back. Marcus said he was in the middle of something and asked her to text him the details. She texted him the details. She also told all 3 of them the same thing, in slightly different words. There's nothing left. The house has a reverse mortgage. And there are debts. It's going to be a difficult few months. It wasn't something she'd planned in advance. It rose in her, quiet and deliberate, and she let it. 40 years of being the one who stayed, the one who drove to appointments and managed prescriptions and spent holidays in that kitchen while her siblings sent gift cards and promises, had earned her, she felt, at least the right to ask the question honestly. Not in words. In this. She needed to know who would show up anyway. The answer came in pieces over the next 4 days. Daniel called once more, asked about costs, mentioned that things were tight right now. Simone sent a long message full of feeling and ending with, "I just don't know how I can make this work financially." Marcus sent 4 words. "Not our problem." Sorry, Renata read that last one 3 times. Not because it surprised her. She understood by then that it wouldn't. But because she wanted to feel the full shape of it. She did. Then she set her phone down and called the funeral home to confirm the deposit she'd already paid. 4 people came to the burial. Her mother's neighbor, a woman named Gloria, who had been bringing over food for years without being asked. A woman from the church whose name Renata didn't catch. A former colleague of her mother's who introduced himself quietly and stood at the back. And Renata, November drizzle. Brief remarks from a pastor her mother had liked. The sound of the lowering mechanism, which was louder than Renata expected. She thought, standing there, about something her mother used to say. That the children would all come back when it mattered. She had believed it for a long time. Standing in that cemetery, she let herself stop believing it, and found that the weight of the day did not change. The probate referee's report arrived 11 days later. The house, owned outright. The reverse mortgage story, a fiction Renata had conjured, and which no one had thought to verify. A savings account with a balance that would have surprised her siblings considerably. A modest investment portfolio her mother had assembled over 2 decades of careful, unhurried decisions. The estate was fully solvent. Renata was named sole executor and primary beneficiary. Her siblings were each bequeathed specific personal items their mother had chosen. A watch, a necklace, a particular set of books. Everything else passed to Renata. She had known this. She signed the acknowledgement and filed it. 3 days later, Marcus texted, "Hey, thinking about Mom a lot. How are you holding up?" Then Simone. "I've been meaning to reach out. We should connect soon. How are things?" Then Daniel, after a silence of nearly 2 weeks. "I've been thinking about next steps for the family." We should talk. The phrase, "next steps for the family," was the one that stayed with her. She turned it over while she stood at the kitchen counter, her mother's handwriting still visible on the wall calendar. A dentist appointment in December that would never be kept, a birthday reminder in January. She left the calendar where it was. She made coffee. She did not respond to any of the messages that evening. The meeting was held at the attorney's office. Renata had chosen this deliberately. Not the house, not a restaurant, not anywhere that would soften the geometry of what the meeting actually was. All 3 of them came, Daniel in a blazer, Simone with careful composure, Marcus, who had said, "Not our problem," to see sitting with his hands flat on the table and a look of practiced reasonableness on his face. The attorney presented the estate clearly and without editorializing. When he finished, Marcus began to speak about fairness, about their mother's wishes, about the spirit of what the family had always been to each other. The attorney let him finish. Then he explained, with the same unvarying tone he'd used for the rest of the presentation, that the will had been witnessed and filed 2 years prior, that it was unambiguous in its designations, and that the assets in question had passed to the named beneficiary without condition. There was nothing to contest. The specific bequests to each sibling would be transferred according to the timeline already outlined. Marcus said they hadn't even known there was an estate. The attorney said that was not a legal argument. Simone looked at her hands. Daniel said nothing. Renata signed what needed to be signed, thanked the attorney, and gathered her coat. Marcus sent one more message that night. It was longer, several paragraphs. Moving through grievance and memory and something that resembled, at a distance, an appeal, Renata read it completely. She was careful about this. She didn't want to respond to something she hadn't actually read. She put the phone away without answering. She did not block him. That felt like a statement, and she wasn't interested in statements. She simply moved on to the next thing. A note to a property manager. Questions about the house she now needed to make decisions about. Her mother's calendar was still on the wall. She'd left it there without deciding to. She looked at it for a moment. The handwriting she had known her whole life. Neat and slightly slanted, filling in small squares with small obligations. Then she turned back to her laptop and kept working.